Life at court was neither better nor worse than life on the estate. The governorship came with greater incomes, but not nearly enough to elevate House Jacos beyond much more than the basic amenities. Coriane still did not have her own maid, nor did she want one, though Jessamine continued to crow about needing help of her own. At least the Archeon townhouse was easier to maintain, rather than the Adirondack estate, now shuttered in the wake of the family's transplant to the capital. "I miss it, somehow," Coriane wrote. "The dust, the tangled gardens, the emptiness and the silence. So many corners that were my own, far from father and Jessamine and even Julian." Most of all, she mourned the loss of the garage and outbuildings. The family had not owned a working transport in years, let alone employed a driver, but the remnants remained. There was the hulking skeleton of the private transport, a 6-seater, its engine transplanted to the floor like an organ. Busted water heaters, old furnaces cannibalized for parts, not to mention odds and ends from their long-gone gardening staff, littered the various sheds and holdings. "I leave behind unfinished puzzles, pieces never put back together. It feels wasteful, not of the objects, but myself. So much time spent stripping wire or counting screws. For what? For knowledge I will never use? Knowledge that is cursed, inferior, stupid to everyone else? What have I done with myself for 15 years? A great construct of nothing. I suppose I miss the old house because it was with me in my emptiness, in my silence. I thought I hated the estate, but I think I hate the capital more." Lord Jacos refused his son's request, of course. His heir would not go to Delphi to translate crumbling records and archive petty artifacts. "No point in it," he said, just as he saw no point in most of what Coriane did, and regularly voiced that opinion. Both children were gutted, feeling their escape snatched away. Even Jessamine noticed their downturn in emotion, though she said nothing to either. But Coriane knew their old cousin went easy on her in their first months at court, or rather, she was hard on the drink. For as much as Jessamine talked of Archeon and Somerton, she didn't seem to like either very much, if her gin consumption was any indication. More often than not, Coriane could slip away during Jessamine's daily nap. She walked the city many times in hopes of finding a place she enjoyed, somewhere to anchor her in the newly tossing sea of her life. She found no such place. Instead, she found a person. He asked her to call him Tibe after a few weeks, a family nickname used among the royals and a precious few friends. "All right, then," Coriane said, agreeing to his request. "Saying Your Highness was getting to be a bit of a pain." They first met by chance, on the massive bridge that spanned the capital river, connecting both sides of Archeon. A marvelous structure of twisted steel and trussed iron supporting 3 levels of roadway, plazas, and commercial squares. Coriane was not so dazzled by silk shops or the stylish eateries jutting out over the water, but more interested in the bridge itself, its construction. She tried to fathom how many tons of metal were beneath her feet, her mind a flurry of equations. At first, she didn't notice the sentinels walking toward her, nor the prince they followed. He was clear-headed this time, without a bottle in hand, and she thought he would pass her by. Instead, he stopped at her side, his warmth a gentle ebb like the touch of a summer sun. "Lady Jacos," he said, following her gaze to the steel of the bridge. "Something interesting." She inclined her head in a bow, but didn't want to embarrass herself with another poor curtsy. "I think so," she replied. "I was just wondering how many tons of metal we're standing on, hoping it will keep us up." The prince let out a puff of laughter tinged with nervous. He shifted his feet, as if suddenly realizing exactly how high above the water they were. "I'll do my best to keep that thought out of my head," he mumbled. "Any other frightening notions to share?"